Welcome to our first episode, our first podcast of News with a View, a Fat Cat production, and coming from not Studio B, but Studio A until I finish Studio B. Our podcast is going to be on topical news and topical events with facts from both sides of the spectrum, from conservative to liberal. We are a conservative leaning podcast, but we're going to take facts over emotion. Again, welcome. My name is John Costa, and Alice Incognito will be joining us in the upcoming podcasts. So welcome to Studio A. My journalistic credentials, I don't have any. The most I could say is I read newspapers growing up on Long Island, New York, and basically I'm a Federalist, but the big difference is, with at least in my approach here to this webpage, and our webpage and our podcast will be facts. If it's allowed in the Constitution, have at it. If it's not mentioned in our Constitution, then state rights take over. Very simple. And everyone has the right to challenge the constitutionality that hasn't been vetted or hasn't been already resolved to the point where you then have to go through the courts and then reintroduce it for an interpretation in the Supreme Court. We stick to facts. One of the main items that we'll be discussing probably over the next 2 years, if we're still here, is this topic, the 14th Amendment. Extremely, extremely important. Everyone from conservative to a progressive should read this book. It's 458 pages by Randy Barnett and Evan Bernick. The whole history of how the 14th Amendment came about, the people that wrote it, and their intentions. Very, very important. The other book that we're going to feature a lot of, The Real Anthony Fauci, by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's another 450-page book. None of these are light reading. And again, it will give you an idea of what we're all going to be facing in the news. And with the news, we get a host of opinions pointing towards a particular network's agenda, that being Fox, all the way down to MSNBC. They all do it. Newspapers have done it since the first publications ever. And it is something that we all have to be aware of now that we have so many sources. Years ago, you could never do that. This could not happen. Or we had to take our news from a Walter Cronkite. That we had to trust that everything was above board and you were getting the news unbiased. That's not the case of today. Everyone has a bias. I have a bias. But I will be biased with facts, not with emotion. The worst decisions, the worst things you could ever do is make a decision uh, with emotions. We all do it. It happens. We can't let any politician, that goes from a Biden to a Trump, try to rule this country or guide this country with emotions. We have to have facts. And the more questions we ask of our government is the best thing that we can do. Like it or not, you don't have to like what you're hearing. But if it's facts, you have to take that into your mindset on forming then an opinion. You can't let opinions be emotional based for the future of our country. And basically, that's what this podcast is going to be about: topical news and how it affects us. Now, today, the former President Jimmy Carter passed away, 100 years. And all the newspapers and all the media, are saying, what a great humanitarian he was. And he was for our country. He was a humanitarian who wanted fairness, who wanted people to have a say, and that their say counted. And as far as that, guy was a great guy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't think there's been a president in our lifetime from the 1950s that I would say would come up to a bar of a Jimmy Carter as far as being a man of his words. But you blow that all away and you look behind the scenes, and I'll tell you, Jimmy Carter was responsible for millions of deaths in the Middle East. His policies in the Middle East condemned millions. In Iran, in Iraq, in Israel, in Syria, in Jordan, in Egypt, all the way through Turkey. Not to mention all the terrorist attacks that happened. You can lay about 90% of that on the policies of Jimmy Carter. Did he do that on purpose? No. He was naive. Nice guy, but politically, on a foreign scale, naive. Now, we could say the same thing about Trump, that he is naive in the political end, though not too naive. He knew, you grease wheels and you get things done. And that's the way he's done it. His major problem in his first administration was that he tried to run the government like a business. It is hardly a business. It's political. You have to have friends. You have to have allies. And he had none. The Republicans didn't trust him, and the Democrats didn't trust him. The Republicans jumped on his bandwagon, the Tea Party, when he won, because they weren't going to win any other way. And the Democrats went after Trump. You had Waters, who from day one, even before when he was running, we're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him. We're going to do, we're going to go after him. And you can't run a government that way. I never wanted to see, and I don't like seeing, all one political party in power. I like the idea of you had to have bipartisanship to make things work. It's important to our democracy. And if you just have things that get rubber stamped approved, bad things happen. And I'm not saying that bad things will happen with Congress and the Senate and the White House. But I'm hoping, I'm hoping that the Democrats give Trump the room that he needs to either succeed or to fail. And, you can't ask for anything more. You just don't want a government that is constantly at each other's throats. We've seen this election was the craziest election in my lifetime. That everyone knew that Biden was not competent to run for a second term. And yet they allowed it. And then at the last minute, when he got his pants beaten off him by Trump, you had a Pelosi and an Obama go in there, strong arm Biden, and then anoint Harris to run. Huge mistake. I don't know what they could have done, but they did a terrible job of ramming Harris down the Democrats' throats. She never had the support in 2016 when she tried to run on her own. It just never appeared. They should have known that. What their idea was she a safe person to fail? That she's never going to run for another political office again. So did they surrender the White House, hoping to save Congress and maybe even take the Senate? And then, that would nail the door shut for Trump trying to get anything done, and everything would have to be through executive, action. And we saw that what a disaster that was for Biden. I would have liked to see in Congress vote and approve things, and it get pushed through and done, in a way where it gets settled. We have an immigration, and everyone screamed, well, it was the Republicans and Trump that shot down the immigration bill. The immigration bill was terrible, absolutely terrible. It would allow 12 million people in, and no checks, no anything. They could just come across and basically, empty out South America and Central America and put them here. I don't know about anyone else, but on my wall I have my grandfather's paperwork coming in through Ellis Island from Italy, 16 years old, taking his the 14-year-old sister with him, and coming in, legally. My grandmother came over in first class and didn't have to go through Ellis Island, but she became a citizen in 1942 at the behest of my father, who said, hey, World War II, you better become a citizen. And my grandfather became a citizen in 1923 when, after my father was born, but my grandfather served in World War I in the United States Army, in World War I. So I'm a believer in coming in the right way and having a wall, but in that wall, beautiful doors that are opened and you pass through, just like my front door. I have a lock on my front door and a doorbell. People just can't walk into my house. they have to knock, and I got to say who they are, and then let them in. Just because someone climbs in through my window of my house, sits on my couch, they don't become part of my family. And that's the way the immigration should be. So, just in my speaking in 13 minutes, you get an idea of my thinking on this podcast. And you don't have to think that way. You could, in the next couple of podcasts, we're going to open up a chat room that comes up, and we'll be doing this live for 1 hour, 3 times a week, and maybe longer, and maybe a couple more, where I'm looking at 7 p.m. doing a live podcast, and then repeating it on our own website. But in the meantime, we're going to go, of course, to YouTube, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter. I will not go to TikTok. Not yet. But we'll be doing 3 streams of digital content. And at the beginning of our shows, we'll be saying whether or not this is live or has been recorded. And if it's live, we'll put a little live bar up there, and but the one that would go out on repeats won't have that on there, so it won't be live, and you'll know it. You can download it from our website, which would be Fat Cat Productions, cat spelled with a K. So it's fatkatproductions.com, and that site will be going up very shortly. I'm just about done with it, and we're doing everything on not the cheap. Right now I have 4 cameras, 3 of them going. I'm only using 2 of the cameras right now, and because I'm not putting the switcher in front of me over here yet, we have automation running. We're hoping to draw an audience in and get different opinions. I have friends that want to come on, and we'll put them in through, of course, like Zoom and other means to get them in the door. And they all have different opinions. As I said, I'm a Republican, a Federalist, in my thinking politically, not in lifestyle choices and stuff. Hey, I'm all for, as long as it's legal and it's allowed, go have at it. And just keep it legal. And you should be able to do what you like in your house legally. And on the outside, I have no problems with lifestyle choices. I do have problems with lifestyle choices being jammed down us. I think the Bill of Rights speaks for everyone. I think our Constitution speaks for everyone. And that we don't need super laws or super rights for individual classes. There are no classes here. And the minute you start talking about having a class system, democracy is doomed. You're not going to have a democracy. I think that there's, plenty of things that we can do to improve what we have. But we have to do something about our health care. We have to do something about our education. I went to school in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And the things they taught us are not even mentioned in today's school. If I went to my children and asked them, who was the president during the Civil War, they wouldn't know. They might not even know who was the second president or who was president during World War II. And, not even discussed. Not even discussed. And again, if you do not acknowledge history, right, you're doomed to repeat it. And it's something that we should all be aware of. And talking about past injustices in our country. Every country has had injustices. And here we settled some of those injustices. Slavery, 400,000 Americans did it. Now, was it about slavery, the Civil War? I would say not really. It was about state rights and succession, and the Civil War, and during the Civil War, or in the South here, the War of Northern Aggression. It was about slavery, and it became about slavery and freeing of the people and righting a wrong. And it was wrong. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't have that. And we can't forget what got us there and why things happen. And again, I go back to the 14th Amendment. This is going to be huge on immigration. It was huge on the Democrats going after Trump on, sedition and treason. And personally speaking, I want to see Trump come out and provide America with evidence of cheating in the election or people being dishonest in how they accused him. Because if he cannot do that, I don't want to hear any of this stuff anymore. I don't want to hear about stolen election. I don't want to hear it. I want to see proof. He's sitting there. Release the documents. Let us know. Even if these people can't be tried, even if President Biden gives everyone a pardon, I want the information out there. And we deserve it. We deserve it. We deserve to know the truth. And I'll be the first one. If Trump lied or lies, he's allowed to change his approach. He's allowed to change his mind. People can do that. You might say something and then someone tells you, hey, this is, I know you could tell time, but let me tell you how the clock works. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. Well, so now you know how I feel. In closing, I'm hoping that you'll hear more of our banter and nonsense, but this is a great avenue for people to get their voice out there and heard. We used to have the town square. The internet and Facebook and X and YouTube now has become our town square. And we have the right to be heard. We don't necessarily have to be right, but people have the right to be heard. Opinions, facts, they matter. So in saying that, thank you and good night.